Good morning. This is Anne with Reinventing Rural. When we are on our Friday WeChat Women Entrepreneur, and I am going to try to get my. There we go. Um, Anyway, today we have a guest speaker we're really excited to have and appreciate you hanging out with us for a little while. Michel Rose from Yachats. She's a rural entrepreneur, and she's going to share with us a couple of things that she learned about working from rural Oregon, and then some more great information that we're looking forward to, and we'll take questions. So, Michel, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself more and take it away.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me today. As you said, my name is Michel Rose. I'm an attorney. I've been doing trademark and copyright law for more than 20 years now. I moved to Oregon about 2 years ago after I had had a long run at Whirlpool Corporation. And when I left there, I was their Chief Trademark Counsel. So we had a gigantic portfolio, trademarks in every single country in the world. And that was a great job. But anyways, so I came out here and opened my own practice, and I'm doing trademark work and copyright work. And it's actually a fascinating thing to do. It's such a change from the corporate world. And it's wonderful to meet so many Oregon people and so many entrepreneurs and really help them as they're coming in, and starting their businesses. One of the things that I was asked to talk about was some obstacles that I have encountered doing this rural business. And what's interesting is that my office is in a co-working space in Eugene. That's where my address is, that's where my mail goes, but I live, as Ann said, in Yachats, which is a tiny little town of less than 1,000 people on the Oregon coast. And it's beautiful. In my opinion, it's the most beautiful place in the world. But it's also very far from everything. So when I get in my car to go to my office to pick up mail, I'm driving 85 miles one way. So that's quite a trek. But one of the things that I had to accept and agree to and make a priority was that if I wanted to live here where I want to live, then I have to accept that once a week or twice a week, or sometimes even more, I'll be driving back and forth to Eugene or back and forth to Corvallis, and that's 80 some miles too. So it's a compromise, but it's a compromise I'm willing to accept because I love where I live. So that's really good. And obstacles with the drive are you have to go over the coastal range mountains, you have to go through weather. As you go over the mountains, you change elevations, of course, and sometimes you get ice up there and sometimes you don't. And it's just, you just have to be really careful about how you do it. But it distance impacts your mail. It impacts when you can meet with clients. It impacts when you can meet with professional colleagues. But again, you have to decide where your values are and what you prioritize, and where I live is a big priority for me. Also living out here, we're also 3.5 hours from Portland. So that's also a big trade-off, to not be close to an airport, to not be, close to a big city. There's so many benefits to that now that Portland's in the state that it's in these last few months. So actually that's not a terrible thing, being that far away from them. But anyways, I think another obstacle, Brad Edig at Corvallis Foundry taught me a new term the other day. He taught me encore entrepreneur, which from what I understand is an entrepreneur who starts a business when they're over 50 years old. Now I'm just a whisper over 50, so I got to say that up front. But nonetheless, I am over 50. And I have to tell you that while I think it's difficult for people, the thing that I bring at my age and with my experiences, I bring 20 plus years of global trademark experience in a Fortune 150 company. And I'm not charging rates that senior partners charge in downtown Portland or downtown LA or downtown New York. I'm reasonably priced because I can be, because of where I live, because I do live in a rural community, and because I operate in rural communities. So encore entrepreneurs have a lot of value because they bring so much experience. And that's what makes that so useful to my clients and professional colleagues that I encounter. So that's another breakthrough thing. And the other reason why this is possible, of course, is because of the state we're in with electronics and the internet, and now Zoom, and I could sit here in Yachats and talk to people all over the world and never have to leave this chair. And and because the US Patent and Trademark Office is also so electronic and so seamless, I could file a trademark application for somebody in China today, have everything done, they get their information and paperwork, and it all happens in an hour and a half. So, that's really great. That our world has come very far in terms of electronics and seamless working, without having to be with each other and without having to have paper shuffle between us. So those are a few things that I've learned over the last couple of years, and that I appreciate in being in a rural place, that I've never lived like this. I've never lived in an area like this before in my life. So those are my 2 to 4 obstacles.
So those are really cool. Thank you for sharing. So I'm hearing that you just if you're going to live in a rural community, you must find value being there. And you're going to have to just accept that travel is going to be part of your life, but the internet also makes it much simpler for you. And then I love that you mentioned what a value people over 50 have in their life experiences, in their work. And yeah, you bring a lot of value to the table. So even if you live out in a rural community, you've still got something to offer. And I love that.
That's right. And most people don't think that's going to happen, because if you don't know my history and you just say, oh, there's, another person doing trademark law. Well, you don't know where I've come from. You don't know my experience. And that's the beauty of people really getting to know each other and having referral networks throughout the entrepreneurial community. That's the benefit of that.
Yeah, that is great. It has been so cool to start connecting all these rural communities. And then, like you said, you're not that far away from other places if you need to hop in your car and drive there.
That's right.
So do you want to talk to us a little bit about trademark copyright? And then I know we've got some questions on the call too.
Sure. Trademarks are a very fascinating aspect of the law. To me, trademarks essentially are brands. They're the source of origin for your products. The mark that you put on your product that says, this is from me, this is mine, you can count on the quality of this product or this service. That's what a trademark is. That is the value that a trademark has. And there are trademarks that you run into trademarks every 5 minutes of your life, sometimes every 2 minutes of your life. You're probably on an Apple or Samsung device right now. That's a trademark. You might be sitting in front of an HP computer, or you have a cup that says Camelback, or trademarks and brands are everywhere. And the more valuable the trademark is, the better the company is. And the more well-known a trademark is, and the more high quality the products are that are associated with the trademark, the more value the trademark brings. So the most expensive assets on a company's books, or on any kind of entity's books, are usually the value of their trademarks. And they're, you can file and protect a trademark in nearly every single country of the world. There's a lot as they tie into domain names, which is another whole realm. But trademarks are ubiquitous. There's everywhere.
Yeah, they sure are. And I know Karen has some questions about these. One of her questions, Karen, I'm going to let you speak more to this because it's about your name and your trademark. So we're going to ask that.
Okay, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. This is so wonderful. I registered my business name, Indie Arts Productions, in 2006. And just this year, I looked at the registry and I thought, well, basically, I shut down the video part of my business. I'm 68. And I thought, I was going to retire, but now I'm thinking I better get back to work because, finances and stuff. So should I go back and re-register my business name, Indie Arts Productions, if I just want to use like Indie Arts as my shop name?
Uh-huh.
And then I do have a trademark for Indie Arts, the DVD magazine, which I got to cover, the video production part of my business. And so can I use that trademark Indie Arts as my, like I'm looking for protection, I guess, because there's other Indie Arts. I mean, I couldn't really copyright it because it's kind of like a phrase, but
Yeah.
I was able to trademark Indie Arts, the DVD magazine.
Did you do that through the state of Oregon?
I did. It was registered through the state of Oregon from 2006 to this year.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
then, like, I think it was March, I looked at it, it's like, wow, $50. Because I shut down the video part of it. I didn't think I'd have to go back to work or whatever, but so I kind of let it lapse. I can go ahead and, pick that up again if it gives me any protection.
It does give you protection. It gives you protection in two ways. One, it gives notice to other people that you own this trademark in the state of Oregon.
Well,
And
it is a trademark, being a business register or registered business name. It's considered a trademark.
no, is it a registered business name or an Oregon state trademark?
Okay, so I have an Oregon State business name register, and I have a US trademark for Indie Arts, the DVD magazine.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm just wanting to use the Indie Arts part of it.
Yeah. We should take a look at that. Why don't we do this offline? We'll take a look at it, and I could pull up your
That'd be awesome.
Federal Register records
Sure.
and have a look at it. But yeah, I mean, I think Indie Art's clever, and the fact that you let it go, you can't bring back what you let go, but you can always refile depending on whether or not you see value in it. And I think there's value in it for some businesses. Are you doing things only in Oregon, or are you doing things outside the state of Oregon also?
Well, I mean, my activity is here, but I mean, I've got 2 books on Amazon that I'm going to try to relaunch. I put them up 5 years ago on Amazon and couldn't really get anything going. So I'm thinking now I've got some momentum with all you guys.
Sure.
And it's all graphics. It's all my graphic design. So there's a website that's just got a ton of my good size images right there with no trademarks whatsoever. And so before I really launch and bring it, out there, I want to, get all the trademark and watermarks and all that stuff settled before I do that.
Right. The key about trademarks, especially in the United States, is you can have an individual state trademark, all 50 states register trademarks, and then you can have a federal trademark, which is what you were talking about. In order to qualify for a federal trademark, this is a piece that will be useful for, I think, everybody, is you have to have what is called interstate commerce. So if you sell to somebody in LA, you sell to somebody in Utah, if you can show that you have business between you and your state and somebody else in another state, that's interstate commerce. And that is technically the date of your first use, is when your first sale outside the state happens. So does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's totally new information to me. I mean, that's really interesting. So then that trademark would have been in effect since 2006.
Right.
So, Michelle, a question that was also asked was, if you register your name with the state of Oregon, is that any sort of protection for you? I mean, it keeps anybody else from using the name in Oregon, right? But would you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's 2 different things that we're talking about, and I think it's hard to keep them distinguished. One of them is your business name in Oregon, where you're an LLC or you're a corporation or professional corporation. That's one thing. That's the business registry in the state of Oregon. And you have to have that to operate. That's also your license to operate a business in the state of Oregon. The other thing the state of Oregon has is a trademark register. So, Karen could say, oh, I have, Indie Arts video production. That's a service that she offers under that brand name. Without the interstate commerce part, she can only own an Oregon trademark. She can't own a federal trademark. But once you advertise your products or your services online, essentially you do have interstate commerce, because you're advertising outside your own state, because you're advertising essentially to the world when you put something online. So the business name does have value for 2 reasons, because it does give notice to other people that the name is yours, and you need it to operate a business in the state. Oregon state trademark gives you some value because it does prevent people in Oregon from taking your trademark. Also, when larger companies do trademark searches to pick their new names, they look at all the individual state registries. In fact, when I do searches for my clients, I look at all 50 state registries to make sure that their marks are not going to infringe anybody in Georgia or in, wherever, Wisconsin. And that's a very valuable thing, because in the United States, we have common law that grew out of our relationship with the UK, so that in the United States, first to use a trademark is what gives you priority. In most other countries in the world, it's first to file a trademark. So, for Karen, she's been using her mark since 2006, and she's been consistently using it. If somebody all of a sudden pops up with Indie Arts for some video production, maybe that's an issue that we could look at. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And yeah, because I also had another question about what you just answered. So
Okay.
that answered my other question.
Okay, are there other questions on the call? Jess, did you have any questions while we have Michelle here?
Yeah, hi, Michelle. I just had a question because I have an LLC that I haven't used for a couple of years, and the name just doesn't really work with my art business. And then I think I'll go sole proprietor for my artistic endeavors. But so I let it lapse, and I don't really want to bring it back. Do I have to pay? How do I close my LLC? Do I need to? I used it for 2 years. It wasn't I didn't make a lot of money on my business.
I mean, if you just let it go and it just lapsed, then it's gone. It's fine.
It's gone. Like, is that going to be a problem later on?
Shouldn't be.
With accounting or anything like that? No.
It should be, but it's always good to check with your tax people on people who do your taxes. I would check with them on that in case there's any continuous income from that LLC has earned over the years. You want to work with them about that, but in general, letting an LLC lapse is fine. And if you want to create a new one, you just go on the Oregon State website and create a new one then.
Right, and then you get a whole different TIN number.
That's right.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
So
I can give you, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with most of my clients, I recommend that they become LLCs for the protection. But we have a lot of artists on the call. What would you recommend? Do you think being a sole proprietor is safe and okay for them, or would you recommend an LLC?
I would always recommend an LLC for a small business, just so that you do have the protection of limiting the liability that you personally carry for the business. I think there's benefits either way. I think I'm going to bring up the tax thing again too. I also think it's very beneficial to have a conversation with your tax advisor about these kind of issues, because depending on how you file, and I can't know how you file or what your position tax-wise is. It's always good to talk to them, because there are tax implications for everything that you set up. So if you set up an LLC and there's 2 members, and how are the profits and losses divided? I mean, it's all about tax. It really comes down. In a general perspective, yes, always try to do an LLC unless you have investors and then you need to be a corporation. If you don't, be an LLC, and then you limit your personal liability. But do check in with your tax people about how income flows and how that's taxed.
That's great advice. That's what we always say too. Always check with your accountant.
Yep.
Linda, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, well, I just had this is from personal experience, and it just happened this year. We had a corporation, an S corporation in Arizona years ago. It was actually administratively closed because we quit paying the fees. It was administratively closed in like 2005. We actually got drawn into a lawsuit because our name was similar to the name on the side of a truck that hit somebody. And they pulled everybody that had any variant of our construction company's name into this lawsuit. And we actually spent like 3 months trying to get ourselves dismissed from this. But the odd thing was, and what I was thinking about Jessica too, is if she's closed her LLC, make sure she's removed her registered agent, if she had somebody else as a registered agent, because they also drew in my mother-in-law, because we had long since left the state before we ever closed our corporation, but we left it open for a couple of years. So we needed somebody in that state, my mother-in-law, as a registered agent. So we left her on there, and we didn't even think about that. But all these years later, she actually got the summons from the court.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you believe that? My 80-year-old mother-in-law received the summons from the court.
You know, I gotta tell you, that's some creative lawyering, man. Finding
Yeah.
everybody who's got a similar construction name, that's very creative lawyering.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun.
Predatory, but creative.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it was.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
All clear now, though. All clear now.
Thank goodness.
Good to hear. Are there any more questions? We have just a few minutes left. And before I take more questions, Brad is telling us that there are going to be some legal workshops coming up and that Michelle is going to be leading one of those. So you can see that information in the chat. But do you have more questions while we have Michelle here with us?
You know, I can speak to one more thing, just so people understand. There's always a question over what's the difference between trademark and copyright. And I think that's a good question to answer, because there's just general confusion about that. So a trademark is really a brand. It's your source of origin. It's your design mark. It's your word mark. It's, you know, it's your brand. Essentially, that's just the best way to describe it. Copyright, on the other hand, protects works of art or literary works, dramatic works, musical works. So if you write a book, your book has a copyright. The title of your book is not copyrightable, and it's generally not trademarkable. I can get into that more, you know, at the legal session, but essentially books are copyrightable, but cannot be trademarked. You know, the Broadway shows, those are all covered by copyright. Movies, all that kind of stuff, that's copyright in artistic things and literary things, essentially. Oh, architectural designs are protected by copyright. Computer code is protected by copyright. So that's kind of the difference between those two.
Oh, that's really helpful.
A quick question then. So my books, I've got published artwork in it. Is it covered by copyright just by being published?
Yes. Yes. It is covered by copyright by being published, but if you ever wanted to sue anybody, you would need a federal copyright registration in order to get into federal court.
Gotcha.
Wow. This is a lot of good information. We so appreciate you being with us for a little while, Michelle, and sharing your knowledge with us. And anybody that wants to speak with her further, please reach out to her directly, or you can contact me, AnnSBDC@gmail.com, and we'll get you connected. Brad, I see you popped on. Did you want to say something?
I wanted to thank everybody for showing up and helping build the participation in the Women's Entrepreneur Group. That's great. Please spread the word. Make sure that everyone knows about this group, and continue to build it. Participate on Reinventing World. Go in there and chat. You can ask questions. There's one-on-one chat. There's group chat in the Women Entrepreneur Group, so you can reach out to Michelle there as well. And I will, if anybody has questions on how to use that, let us know, so we can kind of, it works very similar to Facebook. Okay, so that's there. And then Michelle, again, thank you. I know we're booking you back in for another workshop, but could you just, I don't want to leave on a down note, but can you tell people what can happen if they don't have a trademark, or they don't have their item trademarked?
Yes, that's a great question, Brett.
And then end on a high note. Like how you can help prevent it, okay?
Sure, absolutely. So what can happen if you don't have a trademark is, if somebody does have a trademark and you don't know they do, and you start using that same name, chances are you'll get a letter, what we call a cease and desist letter. And that cease and desist letter will be very bad, and it'll say, you're infringing upon my client's rights, and why didn't you check? Why didn't you know? And you have to stop using your name, and you have to change all of your materials, and it's going to cost you tons of money. And if they're really mean lawyers, they'll want money, they'll want damages from you. So the key is always, 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 and this has happened to plenty of Oregon people. There's local stories about this. There's a winery that had to change their name. You have to check your name before you can use it. And that goes back to that, having an Oregon business name, that's not enough. Having an Oregon trademark, that's not enough. You really need to do the full check. what I always tell people, start on Google. You know, type in a name that you think you might want along with a product or service that you're thinking about. Chances are you'll hit on it if somebody else has it. Always start with Google about that. And so, but the benefit to that is if you are somebody that has your trademark registered ready and somebody new pops up and wants to use it, you know, you get that benefit then. You get to say, hey, you know, I've had this name for 10 years. I'm sure you didn't even check, you would have seen it. You know, you have to stop, you have to change everything. It's a costly thing. It's a very, very costly thing to get one of those letters and have to change over. And I've had a couple of people that have had to do it, and it's painful. The other thing that is important too is to know doing all the upfront work with trademarks is less expensive than one cease and desist letter that you get. Always. So yeah, so, you know, do everything up front, talk to me, talk to other people who do trademarks. You know, there's plenty of great names that are still available. Some people will tell you all the good trademarks are gone. That is not true. That is not true at all. There are plenty of good words and good trademarks left. So don't anybody get discouraged about that.
There was a restaurant in the small town of Colorado where I came from that had been the same name since we moved there for years. And then they got somebody in California had the same name and they'd had it and they had to go. And so don't think just because you're in a small town either that you could just sort of sneak it under, because they had to change all of their stuff. They had to go from, they were called the Hog's Breath Restaurant.
Oh,
Yeah, Hog's Breath, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. yeah.
And they had two of them in Colorado and they had to change it to Boss Hogs. And they had to change everything. I mean, everything. So don't think just because you're small that you're kind of sneaking under the radar, because it doesn't work.
And because I'll tell you, the internet is ubiquitous. Everybody will find something. And you also have people who travel in little towns and people go on vacations. And, you know, I'll never forget one of the first times I came to Oregon, when I was still working for Whirlpool, and we're driving through, I can't think of the name of the town, but we're driving through on the way back from the airport. And all of a sudden there's an old 1950 something Whirlpool sign on this appliance store that doesn't even sell Whirlpool products anymore. And, you know, I'm their trademark counsel and I'm driving through town and seeing this. So you can't hide. You'll eventually spot out.
No, you can't.
Yeah, not anymore. No.
Well, that's great parting advice. Always check your name.
Always.
I love it. Well, thank you again for your time, for hanging out with us for a few minutes,
Sure.
for help today. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of you that took a few minutes to join. And in 2 more weeks, we'll have another WeChat. So I hope to see you there.
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Good weekend.
Bye.